This word in your ear, Mark, is brought to you by NordVPN. And VPN stands for what,
I
Mark
can
Ellen?
confidently tell you.
Tell me.
Virtual Private Network.
Tell me again.
It's Virtual Private Network, David.
That's absolutely correct. And that's a way to keep your data safe on the internet, whether you're logging in from a home or abroad, or in the comfort of your own home, or in an internet cafe or whatever on a street corner. VPN protects your identity and encrypts your data so that nobody can steal that identity. And at the same time, it enables you to access the internet via servers in more than 50 different countries, which means you can often sidestep the region restrictions and stream movies.
And can see TV that's not available in this country.
Yeah, and you can see. I'll tell you the thing I was just looking at. I was looking at YouTube via the USA, and and you get football highlights in the UK via YouTube. You get longer football highlights in the United States because they're not interested in football. Hence they can have more. Yeah. But also, I was looking at movies you can see on YouTube with adverts for nothing in the United States, and I was watching a documentary about Muscle Shoals Studio. And the particular bit I was watching focused on the story of a hospital orderly who was heard singing at a local gig, which immediately led to him going into a recording studio. And his first time in a recording studio, making a record, there was a huge hit all around the world. So the first record he made was When a Man Loves a Woman.
No, it was a hospital orderly.
Percy Sledge, first time in the studio, When a Man Loves a Woman. It's all downhill after that.
It is.
Anyway, so that's what I discovered via NordVPN. Meanwhile, you can take advantage of a deal where you can try NordVPN by going to nordvpn.com/yourear, or just use the code YourEar to get a huge discount off your NordVPN plan and one additional month for free and a bonus gift. It's risk-free because there's a 30-day money-back guarantee. Full details, as ever, below.
You're listening to a podcast from The Word.
Last week, John Montagna from New York, one of our patrons, sent in a stack waddy, and I thought I'd just continue that theme. It was about pseudonyms. I thought I'd just try you on these because I really like them. These are pseudonyms used by 5 well-known guitarists to record anonymously. 4 of them are real and 1 is a ringer. Spot the imposter. Okay, the pseudonyms are S. Flavius Mercurius, Bijou Drains, Deacon L.J. Bates, Niels Schoberg, and J. Toad.
Wow.
4 of those are real names used by very well-known guitar players to record.
Do you know, I don't know any of them.
I didn't know any of
them. And I certainly don't know J. Toad, so I'm going to pick that as the ringer.
J. Toad is not the imposter. No, S. Flavius Mercurius was Jimmy Page on Same Old Rock by Roy Harper. Bijou Drains. Do you remember Pete Townsend was partly responsible for forming the group Thunderclap Newman?
Oh, right, cool.
And he on Something in the Air, he plays the bass under the name Bijou Drains. Blind Lemon Jefferson's first recording, which was See That My Grave Is Kept Clean in 1925. He recorded as, I don't know why actually, he recorded as Deacon L.J. Bates. J. Toad, Jeff Beck. Jeff Beck on My World Is Empty Without You by Vanilla Fudge. And Niels Schoberg was Taylor Swift when she co-wrote Calvin Harris's hit This Is What You Came For.
So what's the ringer again?
The ringer is Niels Schoberg. Oh. She wasn't a guitar player. She was a songwriter. That's a recent thing.
Very good. Very good. I want to say something. I've been away this weekend. I went to the Cheltenham Festival. So we drove down there and we went somewhere on the way. So we were driving around Oxfordshire and Blenheim and so forth and down to Cheltenham, and then we came back yesterday. And the weekend before, I was in North Yorkshire, Ilkley, and driving around there. And in both weekends, the weather, I don't know if you noticed, was fantastic.
It was gorgeous,
I
wasn't
don't know if it was where you were,
it? Yeah,
but
London was lovely.
it was where we were. And so we got the opportunity to drive in lovely autumn sunshine amid the changing colours of the English countryside. And it's just an opportunity to stop and observe. It's a remarkably lovely country.
This country. It is.
And I don't think we recognise that quite as often as we should. And I've just had that opportunity in the last 2 weekends, and I've very much enjoyed it.
It's so true, because if you live in London, if you live in big cities and you're just watching news and stuff all the time and reading newspapers, your world is very closed down to that kind of thing, isn't it? My eldest sister lives out in Dockenfield in Surrey. We went to see them the other day. We were just stunned. We went for this fabulous walk up in the woods there. Incredible views. You get views too, which you never get in London. You can see, 10, 15 miles. It's fantastic. No, we should appreciate it more. Also, autumn, underrated.
Oh,
have you ever been to Vermont in the autumn? It's fantastic.
Never have, but that's supposed to be the place.
Those crimson leaves. It's absolutely incredible.
Yeah. But anyway, never mind Vermont.
Good point.
England, just England. That'll do.
England in the autumn. Fantastic. So Nick Hornby, did you see Nick Hornby's an extract from his book was published this weekend? I thought it sounded fantastic, actually. The concept is, it's called Dickens and Prince, A Peculiar Kind of Genius. And it comes out in I think about 3 weeks' time. And it's such a clever idea. He's looked at the similarities between these two as a way of kind of scrutinising what makes them work, Things that I know quite a lot about Dickens. I don't know very much about Prince, actually. Both abandoned as children. Dickens, we know, was abandoned when he was about 12, worked at the blacking factory, lived with his kind of miserable landlords while the family were in Marshalsea. Prince lived with he was booted out of the home, lived with an aunt. This is when he was 11. His parents split up. His father then kicked him out, and he was literally kind of homeless at the age of 12 and lived with a mate. He was kind of on the street. They're both incredibly prolific. I mean, Dickens died at 58. Prince died at 57. Dickens wrote 4 million words, Dave, just in novels and novellas. Plus, there were 14,000 letters published. It's incredible. Then there was all his journalism. Then there were his plays, and he edited a weekly journal. Prince, 42 albums. They estimate at its most conservative that he has 5,000 unreleased songs. So if you put out a 10-song album twice a year, then he could do that for the next 250 years. It's amazing, isn't it?
But interesting contrast, am I right in thinking? Dickens pretty much published everything he wrote, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
Whereas Prince it produced loads of stuff that he didn't put out.
No, held it back. Absolutely.
Which is, and Dickens also writing against a deadline, sitting down thinking, all right, I've got to write the next instalment of whatever it is in the next 2 weeks, because basically the boy will be standing there ready to take it to the printer. When I finish.
And a vast international audience be waiting to read it. So I've absolutely got to do it.
Yeah.
No, he made another really incredible point that Dickens could work on, this must be virtually unique, could work on more than one novel simultaneously.
Oh, yeah, he could.
So you're keeping an entire cast of characters, a plot, a tone, an atmosphere, completely separate in your head. It's incredible. And obviously, Prince worked on 2 or 3 albums simultaneously. It's slightly different, but it's still extraordinary that he could do it. They both thought they were ripped off. Dickens, you remember? I mean, Dickens' plays.
Well, definitely.
All these plays were written based on Dickens' books, which he received no money from. And the most extraordinary indication of how rapidly successful he was that Pickwick Papers, one of the very, very earliest, was in fact the earliest. First one. Pickwick Papers, somebody wrote a play after 12 monthly instalments. In fact, there were 20 in total. So there was already a play written before the book was finished and touring, for which he made no money. And Prince, of course, signed that, whatever it was, supposedly $100 million contract, and then discovered he didn't own his own copyrights. So they both did the same thing, which is they returned to live performance for revenue. Remember, Dickens went and toured America, vastly successful. Prince did all those tours. Prince played 21 nights at the O2. And they both died, in a sense, partly from overwork. Dickens run down, stroke, a lot of skin infections and headaches and a lot of laudanum being taken, Prince died of prescription painkillers, which he kind of took to allow him to carry on working. So there are all sorts of similarities. I think it's a really clever and original idea for a book. And also, there's a really good point that Dick Hornby made, I think, about novels. He said, I don't think the great writing is in fiction anymore. He said, I think the great writing's in TV. He said, it's TV serials. You know, it's The Wire and it's Breaking Bad and it's, it's Succession. It's things where people are under this discipline where they've got to come up with as Dickens did, with a cliffhanger every kind of whatever it is, 45 minutes, you know. And I thought
it also accounts for the fact that very often Dickens books, like long-running TV serials, the least satisfactory thing about them is the ending. Because they're not built to end. They're built to sustain.
Yeah.
You rarely get to the end of a Dickens novel and go, wow, it's all tied up, you know. He just
Tale of Two Cities, you do. I remember that.
I've never read
death scene. Oh, okay.
I'll give you that. I'll give you that one. But yeah, no, I look forward to reading it.
Oh, it's fantastic.
The Word Podcast, prime cuts of popular culture served fresh each week.
Okay, and welcome to a special birthday Patreon guest, Cathal Chu. Good morning. Is it your birthday today?
It was not. It was 2 days ago on Saturday.
And how did you?
And
celebrate?
what happened?
It was actually a very quiet birthday because this year, because I had family away, I actually only had the birthday dinner yesterday. For my actual birthday, what did I do? I went to see a couple of movies at the London Film Festival.
All right.
Go on. What did you see?
I saw Super Eagles '96, which was a documentary about the Nigerian national football team from the '90s, which was very fascinating. I've never seen before.
Wow.
And the other movie I saw was New Normal, which was a Korean horror movie. And it was episodic. Was sort of.
This is good.
That's very good. That's very good birthday fare.
He goes to see two films. He goes a Korean horror story and a film about the Nigerian football team.
That's very good.
The noticeable thing about this Korean horror movie, it wasn't terribly gory, but it was very good. It actually brings back to something that you mentioned some time ago on the Word in Your podcast. Placement of Apple products, product placement, because you mentioned that there was a strict rule about Apple not allowing their products to be used by villains. But yet, in this movie, the Apple products, the Apple iPhone, was being used by, they weren't exactly heroes, but they were at the very least morally ambiguous characters like a peeping Tom or a slappy.
But that's just an iPhone. It's like saying you can't use, I don't know, a Hoover or something. I mean, it's just any device is probably going to be an iPhone, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm sure they didn't hold it up to the camera so you could see the make or anything.
Oh, you could quite clearly see it was an iPhone.
Oh, well, they can't stop
Apple
that.
actually changed their policy, or is this a sort of new direction for them? But I really regret not asking the director about this during the Q&A, which actually brings me to the second thing I want to bring up. Because I went to both these movies I went to see, there were Q&As afterwards, and there was a refreshing lack of statement twats during these Q&As.
Oh, right, there were actually questions.
Because you've been to these Q&As before. You know what happens. There's always some man, and it's always a man, who holds his hands up and goes, I don't actually have a question, but I'd like to say...
Yeah.
And they proceed to give their opinion.
I'd like to make clear that I know more about the subject than you do.
Exactly.
I did a thing only yesterday. I was chairing a thing at the Cheltenham Literature Festival, and when I threw it open, I now say, has anybody got any questions or observations they wish to make? Then you make it plain that there is a kind of distinction between the two. Because in case anybody listening has not noticed this is the bane of the lives of anybody who chairs a session with an author. Any questions, most of them are not questions at all. They're very often saying, I know something you don't know. That's kind of
just people showing off and loving the sound of their own voice.
Yeah. So anyway, it's traditional on these occasions, Carl. Have you got a question, or have you got a log you'd care to throw on the Word in Your Ear fire?
I'd like to ask about support acts, opening acts at concerts. Now, more often than not, you go see a concert and there's an opening act that you've never heard of and you never hear of again. Sometimes when you go to a big concert, particularly a stadium gig, the opening act is somebody you've heard of. It's sort of biggish name, like Kaiser Chiefs opening for U2 or Morrissey supporting Madness. And sometimes, occasionally, you go to a concert, there's an opening act, and you think, that's very good, she's very good, he's very good. I must remember that name and keep an eye out for them in the future. So my question is, who is the best, unheard of at the time, support act you've ever seen at a gig?
When you say, you mean absolutely unheard of? I can remember seeing Teardrop Explodes right down the bottom of a bill at the Music Machine. But I mean, they must have been mentioned in newspapers or whatever. That was news to me. But I mean, unheard of. Dave, have you got any people you thought?
Well, I don't know about unheard of. I've got two examples.
At the time.
I've got two examples. And the first, I don't know if it entirely qualifies as a support act, because this is in the days of package tours when you want to see, 6 acts on the bill and Chuck Berry at the top. The first gig I ever went to see was Chuck Berry at the top, but pretty much down the bill, almost the opening act, were the Animals. And they played like 4 songs because that's all you could do if you're on those kind of bills in those days. And one of them was "This is a new thing that we're going to record soon," and they played "House of the Rising Sun," and they apologised for the fact that it was quite long. It must have been about 3.5 minutes, which at the time seemed interminable. But they were fantastic,
Yawning and going to the bar.
Yeah. But the other case, more of a sport act, which I definitely hadn't heard of and didn't know anything about at the time, is I went to see U2 at the Meadowlands in New Jersey in, I don't know when this would be, 84, 85 or something like that. Yeah, the War Tour. Yeah, so whenever that was.
83, that was.
Okay, there you go. And the support act were Lone Justice.
Oh, yeah.
Who I thought was sensational.
I remember you ringing me up and saying, I want to manage this band. I can remember you saying that.
Oh, this proves I should never be an A&R man. They
went on to great things.
Well, they didn't really go.
Well, you featured them a lot on Whistle Test.
Absolutely, because I was so impressed. And I think they were a rare case of, they were just different from U2. And they went on there with a load of songs you'd never heard before. And that's the test. And made you listen. And, the odd one with the cover versions, they did a version of Velvet Underground, Sweet Jane, and things like that. And I thought they were so impressive. And as you say, I was instrumental on getting them on the Whistle Test. But oddly enough, they never really worked as the headliner. Oddly enough. They kind of worked perfectly down the bill to U2.
They weren't that dramatic and charismatic, were they? They were just a really, really good group making wonderful records.
Support
she
group,
was fantastic.
Sort of never made a headliner, in my experience.
Yeah.
Tragic, but true. So that's my case. What about you, Mark?
No, I think the only one I could think of really was Teardrop Explodes, and they were, I think, supporting Patrick Fitzgerald band at the and right down the bottom of a bill at the Music Machine. But beyond that, there must be more. But I just can't think now off the top of my head.
Well, I mean, the famous case I always quote, but they're obviously not unknown at all. Little Feat supported Doobie Brothers at the Rainbow, and were such an extraordinary success. The Doobie Brothers could hardly get on stage.
But they were sort of known, weren't they? I mean, you read about them in the papers and things.
Yeah.
But unknown is a difficult one. Yeah, it's a good question, though. Very good question.
What about you? Have you got one?
Well, June of 1992, I went to see Squeezed at the Town and Country Club, and their opening act was this female singer, and she was very good. And I thought, I must keep an eye out for her. What's her name? And at the end of her set, she went, "My name is Tasman Archer. Thank you for listening." And 3 months later, Sleeping Satellite was top of the charts.
There you go, and then never heard of again.
Exactly.
How weird is that? Well, look, thank you very much for that, Carl.
And thanks for having me on again.
Very nice to have you.
And nice to mark your birthday, even if we're slightly late in doing it. And thanks.
We'll see you, if not before, in a year's time.
Thanks for being a Patreon supporter.
Very good.
We very much appreciate it. All the very best.
All right.
Cheers. Thanks very much.
Bye.
Take care, guys.
You're listening to The Word Podcast, where the time is whenever you want it to be.
As we've often observed, pop picking is a fast and furious business these days, so we've got to keep track of what's happening with the hot new names. Bob Dylan.
Bob Dylan. Well, there was an extract from which you and I both read, from his upcoming book, The Philosophy of Modern Song. Which I thought was really interesting, because I don't know what I feel about this. The news is great. Dylan's written another book, first since Chronicles. And it's his impressions of various songs. And we now know, because someone has leaked the contents page. Have you seen this? So we know what songs
I don't think so. Go on.
Oh, it's really, he's writing about Witchy Woman. Don't let me be misunderstood. Blue Moon, you're cheating. Witchy Woman, I know.
That's a weird one.
It's a weird one, isn't it? You're Cheating Heart. Pump It Up by Elvis Costello. Tutti Frutti, Mac the Knife. Great Pretender, On the Street Where You Live. London Calling. Black Magic Woman. That's extraordinary. You think? Ball of Confusion. But I mean, I just didn't know what to think reading this, because when you read books about songs, what you want is a variety of different ways of covering them. You want some journalistic stuff which talks about the context of the song, the people who wrote it, you know what I mean, the recording, its creation, what inspired it, etc. And in this book, it appears that what we're getting is just Dylan's kind of sense impression of the song. I'll give you a quick example. This is his thing he wrote about strangers in the night. He said, intruders, oddballs, cooks and villains, in this gloomy, lifeless dark fight for space. Two rootless, alienated people, withdrawn and isolated, open the door to each other. Sweethearts and honeys, right from the beginning. I should be doing this in Dylan voice, really. Now you're yoked together, one flesh in perpetuity, into the vast eternity, immortalised. So that's the kind of thing that he's telling you. So what he's doing is saying, this is how I felt listening to this song. Okay, here's another really quick one. This is My Generation by The Who. He says, in this song, people are trying to slap you around, slap you in the face, vilify you. They're rude and they slam you down. They take cheap shots. They don't like you because you pull out all the stops and go for broke. You put your heart and soul into everything and shoot the works because you've got energy and strength and purpose. So that's the tenor of this book. It's interesting, isn't it? I mean, I just didn't know what I felt about it. I mean, we shall see when the whole thing comes out.
I'll tell you what I feel about it. I feel that based on those two entries that you've read to me, I feel each of them should terminate with the age-old expression, will this do?
Will this do, Ed?
Because that's just completely off the top of the head.
It really feels to me like a lockdown project. It feels to me like a man who's meant to be going on a world tour and he's sitting at home and he's done his welding and he's had some breakfast. He's thinking, what the hell am I going to do for the rest of the day?
What do you do when
I might as well put on My Generation by The Who and just see what I think about it. So I really don't know. I don't know. We shall see when it comes. We will obviously be talking about it more when it comes out in 2 or 3 weeks' time.
So he's playing live this week. Are you going?
No, we're not going. I tell you why we're not going. Because
no, I'm going to pick you up here, Mark Ellen. You made that very interesting little transition you made. I said, are you going? And he said, no, I'm not going. We're not going. Because the important thing is, your wife is devoted to Bob Dylan.
She is.
Okay? Now, is it not that, why doesn't she go? It's a lot of money, but why doesn't she go? Just... Why don't you go and crinkle £300 in her lovely hand and say, here you are, darling. Buy yourself something nice.
I think we thought it was a joint venture, really.
Oh, dear.
Together, but I don't know. Then you buy yourself something nice. You should just stuff a big roll of that.
£600 for the two of you. That's a lot.
I think it's
a lot of letters.
Yeah. It is.
But, you know, the fact is, you would go and be kind of interested in a detached way, where she goes because it's the stuff of life. That's a very different thing.
It is, but she's been so mortally disappointed. Also, the last time we went, the same time you went, and we were in the front row, and so there we were, 20 feet from Bob Dylan. I think there's that feeling that whatever it is, it's going to be a terrible disappointment as well. I don't know.
But then again, you see, it's the Palladium, and because the Palladium obviously doesn't have a long-running show in there at the moment. There's no kind of whatever's been running there.
Is that why there's so many more Rock Kings? I guess
it must be. It must be because everybody's playing the Palladium. I went to see the Analogues at the Palladium a couple of weeks ago. Morrissey was playing the Palladium last week, wasn't he? Mark Almond was playing the Palladium last night. Bob Dylan's there this week, and no doubt there's tons more. And, you know, the Palladium has not been used in a big way as a venue for years, has it?
No, it hasn't.
The Palladium has a huge amount to be said for it. It's not that big. You know, what is it?
It's only about 2,002
It's fewer than 2,000, isn't it? I think
it's about half the size of Hammersmith Odeon.
Okay, there you go. So you can see and you can hear, and it's just next to Oxford Circus Tube Station.
Yeah, it is.
It's in the middle of the West End. It's the most easily accessible venue in London, really, for absolutely everybody. And it's got a great sensification and a great heritage about it, because you're thinking, well, everybody stood on that stage, It's the same stage and it feels the same in the place. So there's a huge amount to be said for it. It ought to be kind of marketed more heavily as it's a special night out of the Palladium.
Completely. Because there's, it's the variety shows and Morecambe and Wise and all that. You think of all those.
Louis Armstrong, all those people
exactly.
have all been on that stage.
Yeah.
All the great vaudeville performers, absolutely everybody has trod those particular boards.
Yeah.
And so I think you should go and pay a tout, get a ticket, give it to your wife. Don't go yourself.
That'd be the noble thing, wouldn't it?
The Word Podcast. 2 cocoa tins and a piece of string.
Any other business? We're joined by Alex Gold. Hello, Alex.
Hi, Dave. How are you?
I'm very well. I'm exhausted after my weekend at the Cheltenham Literature Festival. And the high spot of which was having dinner on Saturday evening with various people, including Ian Hislop and Jess Phillips, the MP.
Good value, both of them.
Extremely good value.
Oh, my Lord.
My God, she's good value.
Yeah,
well,
she's
they're both
fantastic.
good value. But
she was actually just on Have I Got News for You, wasn't she, the other day? So,
well, I think she effectively was still on Have I Got News for You when I had dinner with her. And anyway, we got to talking about facelifts. And I was talking about having seen on television, just in the wake of the death of the Queen, I saw Lulu being interviewed, who I thought looked terrifying, and I thought, and I saw Jenny Agutter, who I thought looked fabulous. Yes, and my cliched view is so-and-so's had a lot of work done. Other person hasn't had any work done at all. She says, "Let me have a look." Jess Phillips says,
"Oh no!"
Instantly gets out a phone, whack, gets up pictures, because Jess Phillips is apparently the way she amuses herself on a Saturday evening, sits down and watches telly with members of her family, her sisters or whatever, and they just sit there and watch whatever it is. And well, she's
had work done.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. And the thing about Jess Phillips, her view of this stuff is really quite technical. She just looks at a picture, goes, "Well, looks good, but yeah, okay, there's something."
Bit of tweaking by the ears.
There's something gone on there, and she basically explained. She said, "I think she said she's 42," and she said, "I'm 42, and my forehead has got lines on it. It's just got lines on it. If you're 50 or 60, your forehead has definitely got lines on it. If you're 70 or whatever, if you're Lulu's or Jenny Agutter's age." There's no way it doesn't have lines on it unless you've had something done, And I thought it was really interesting because she was talking about all her mates and contemporaries and whatever have all had something done. And so it's one of those things that it's kind of like inflation. Once it enters the system, it affects absolutely everybody. So if you're an actress, particularly if you're an actress, or certainly if you're a woman in the public eye, you start to notice people around you have had things done.
Yeah.
You're going to respond. You might respond only in a subtle way, only having a minor procedure, but you're probably going to respond. Because otherwise you're going to really fall behind. It's like, 40 years ago when actors suddenly started going to the gym. They all had to go to the gym.
Yeah, they did.
Because one
Even John Cleese. Yeah.
You're going to be.
Well, there was somebody very famously said, and I think it might have been Julie Christie. She said, as an actress, she said, you're looking at the parts people get, and you're seeing that people younger than you, so because it always goes girl, girlfriend, kind of, wife, goes stepmom,
young mum,
young mum, stepmum, wife, and eventually grand. She said she was getting grandmother parts. There were people older than her still getting stepmother parts, and she thought, this is just outrageous.
So
what do you do?
Henceforth, I'm looking at facelifts in a completely different fashion. Don't go looking for the big, grotesque overhaul. Go looking for the tiny little bit of adjustment in one detail of the picture.
So do you think you're now equipped to be able to spot that, Dave?
No, I'm not, but I'm far more alive to it now. And so I think it's likely. Okay, I throw this challenge to the massive. I think your rock hero who you like to think is above all this, I think your rock hero, no matter who he or she is, has had something done. I think they just
because everybody else has, and exactly. Maybe
well, can I be so bold as to throw a suggestion into the ring?
You may,
because
Alex.
This might well be a controversial statement, but I'm going to say it. Now, as a lifelong Oasis fan, I've been obsessed with Noel Gallagher's face for many, many, many years. And I'm convinced that Noel Gallagher has enjoyed some kind of work on said face in the last 10 years.
It's perfectly possible, isn't it?
I'm going to go further.
Because he looks absolutely fantastic.
He looks younger now than he did in 1997.
Yeah.
Also, his eyebrows are smaller. He's got no creases around the mouth.
Boy, you really have studied this in great detail.
But that's the point. That's the point.
Yeah,
Alex has made the same point as Jess Phillips is making. It's a technical thing. Don't go looking for the huge, obvious thing. Go looking for the tiny, subtle things.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to go further. So Alex thinks he's being bold in saying, has Noel Gallagher had work? I'm going to make it an even more sweeping statement. It would be absolutely amazing if he
hadn't. Exactly.
That's the point. No matter who it is.
Because,
Bob
as you
Dylan
say, it can be so subtle.
It.
Yeah, probably. It can be so subtle. Because everybody kind of still thinks that a facelift is kind of... who was the terrible example? Renée Zellweger. Do you remember Renée Zellweger? Yeah. Came back and there were pictures on... I don't know what film she was promoting. The pictures on double-decker buses. And you genuinely did not recognise her. Yes. She looked completely and utterly transformed. It wasn't a weight thing or anything. It was just a face thing. And she was denied that she'd had anything done, but she patently must have done. But
I think we've now reached the point where people have stopped denying it, because actually, when did somebody in the public eye last deny it? Because the likelihood is that they've had something done. It may not be huge, but they may have had something done. Yeah. But once you have something done and it's not disastrous, what's the next thing that's going to happen?
Yeah.
It's like buying a nice suit. If it fits, you think, I'm going to buy another one.
Just these are good. This is me.
Well, facelifting, it's going to work in the same way.
Yeah.
Notice how we're talking with the airy self-confidence of a bunch of...
And ours have been really unsuccessful, I think. It possibly made it worse.
We're a bunch of blokes who look so much like unmade beds. Nobody could possibly think that we will ever accuse us of going in for it at all, But anyway, I think, here's my challenge to the massive. Your rock hero has had work done, prove otherwise. Anyway, autographs, further thoughts from the Cheltenham Literature Festival. I happened to be going through the festival grounds and going past the Waterstones tent as Richard Osman and Jarvis Cocker were signing autographs, signing books in the enormous Great Waterstones tent. And Cheltenham, you've been at Cheltenham, Mark, many times. It's a huge deal, isn't it?
Very big deal.
It's the kind of Glastonbury of literature festivals.
It is.
Absolutely enormous. And, there's a queue snaking out the tent on one side for Richard Osman and a queue snaking out the tent at the other side for Jarvis Cocker. Who's got the longest queue?
Well, I would imagine Richard Osman, because he is
absolutely correct.
Spectacularly successful, isn't it?
But they're both really long queues. And
God,
it makes you, if you're a poor author, it makes you you slouch away, thinking, my God, what's that like?
I know.
But anyway, again...
and they all want, at the top of the queue, they want to have just the briefest conversation with you.
I suppose.
And so that's really difficult, because if you extend that conversation, you're disadvantaging all the people who are, 3/4 of an hour away at the back of the queue, and yet they want to talk to you too. So it's very hard to be diplomatic and make everyone feel okay.
I couldn't believe the scale of it. It was absolutely amazing. Anyway, sorry. Back to my dinner with Jess Phillips, which is now my dinner with Jess Phillips.
Yes.
It's not everybody else, it's just my dinner with Jess Phillips. She was telling me that she took... JK Rowling got in touch with her when she was writing a book. She's written a number of books under a pen name, hasn't she?
Yeah.
JK Rowling. and one of them is sent in Parliament. So she wanted to get a feel for Parliament and whatever. And she got in touch with Jess Phillips and said, "Can I come?" She said, "By all means." So she had to be JK Rowling's minder in Westminster for a day or whatever.
That's exciting, isn't it?
And she said, Jess Phillips, really, really good communicator.
Yeah.
Really gets to the bones of the story really quickly. And she said, what you have to understand about Parliament is the overwhelming majority of people who work in Parliament are 25 years old. And therefore, they've grown up with Harry Potter. They're absolutely obsessed with Harry Potter. She said, walking around Westminster with JK Rowling was literally like walking around with the Beatles.
Yeah, there is no bigger star.
Which I'd never really thought of before.
Yeah.
She said, people with tears in their eyes, people shaking, people just couldn't look at her. You can't believe this.
No, I can believe it, totally.
And
our kids grew up with her, and they just absolutely adored her, and still do.
And she said and then some people had proffered books to sign, and if anybody had a first edition of the first Harry Potter book, and she was asked to sign it, she first of all said, "Now, do you want me to sign it to Jane, J.K. Rowling, or do you want
to sell it?"
Oh, quite. Quite. So the raw autograph means it's worth a lot of money, apparently.
Huge amount, yeah.
I probably got a first edition of Harry Potter somewhere in the house. I never realised it was worth that much. Mind you, mine isn't signed, but I was really taken by that. And of course, the autograph is is fighting back against the selfie, isn't it? Really, it's something you can take away. I just thought that was absolutely astonishing.
There's an amazing moment when Bob Dylan was being interviewed by, I think, Jan Wennerman, I'm not sure now, for Rolling Stone. And somebody barges in there in a restaurant, so barges up and says, can I have your autograph? And so Dylan very sweetly signs the autograph. And then someone comes in a bit later saying, that guy got your autograph, he's outside trying to sell it. And Dylan's going, "Oh, really? How much is he asking?" Because he was really interested to see what his worth was at the moment. I want to take the temperature of my stock, current standing.
Yeah. So what else have we got, Alex? We got any new Patreon supporters who we enormously value? We do.
We do indeed. And I'm going to tell you who they are right now. In fact, they are Steve Buckley.
Excellent, Buckley. Steve. Very good to have you on board.
No relation to the Steve Buckley we used to work with. He could be the same, one and the same. You remember Steve Buckley?
Could be Steve Buckley, lovely guy. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, he's a lovely guy anyway. If he's a patron,
exactly. Yeah.
Anyway, go on.
Even lovelier.
Philip Rafferty.
Philip Rafferty, hello, welcome aboard. Very nice to have you.
Charlie Gould.
Charlie,
also.
Extremely welcome.
Maurice Gallagher.
I know Maurice.
That's
Gallagher.
A good name.
Maurice
That's
Gallagher.
A name.
I know Maurice. The doyen of the pluggers back in the day, and all kinds of other places. I've been halfway around the world with Maurice Gallagher. Very, very good value, Maurice. Carry on.
Baird Standish.
Baird Standish.
That's a great name.
Baird Standish. Baird Standish sounds as if he ought to be presenting a great outdoors series on Channel 4.
Got a Bear Grylls type character.
Yeah.
Baird
looking
Grylls.
windswept and interesting.
Absolutely.
Of the Cooling Hills.
He's banging Munros somewhere. Baird Standish. Banging Munros with Baird Standish at Channel 4 on Channel 4 at 8:30 this evening. Carry on. This is a good.
Bring your Kendall mint cake.
This is a good way to move forward with names. This is. Go on, carry on.
This is another fantastic name, actually. Maxwell Kemp.
Maxwell
Kemp.
Maxwell Kemp.
Is he in a jazz band? Could he be a clarinet player in a band?
Maxwell Kemp is on CBeebies. He's popping up between the cartoons on children's BBC. Maxwell Kemp. He's straight out of stage school, and he's a very bouncy character. Carry on. Go on.
That's all for this week.
We must play this game again.
We're going to play that game.
That's very good.
So if you'd like your name, because if there weren't already enough benefits from being a Patreon supporter, now the new benefit is, as we announce the names of new Patreon supporters, we allot them roles in the TV schedules.
In
Okay?
a fantasy world.
We give them
Right.
TV programs to present
Yeah.
based entirely on their name. Okay.
Yeah.
It's, if you are looking for the final nudge, that may be it. www.
Don't let it be off-putting.
.com/word in your ear.
This podcast was brought to you by The Word.